Well, this video is coming completely out of nowhere late on a Thursday night. We just got a massive update as it pertains to the exclusive NFL simulation license between the NFL and EA Sports. Now, I'm in the middle of making tons of college football 26 content right now. The game just dropped and I've got a ton of videos I'm working on that's coming soon, but I had to push all of that to the side because we've been waiting months for this update. We've been talking about it on and off for a while now, how the deal was coming close to an end. They only had 1 year left on the deal, and by now EA and the NFL typically would have signed an extension. Normally they would have done this almost a year ago at this point. They would have signed an extension based off previous years. And the fact that they hadn't done that yet, a lot of people were starting to think that the license could potentially be opening up. We had also heard rumors a while back that the NFL maybe wasn't as happy as they used to be with EA, just based on some of the backlash that Madden has received over the last few years. So based on those rumors and the fact that they've gone many months past their normal extension date, it was kind of seeming like maybe this was going to be an opportunity where the NFL reconsider staying exclusive, open up the license, and then at that point, if another company did want to make a game, there's no guarantee that another company would, but if they wanted to, they'd be able to. Well, we just got a big update about all of this tonight, and there was some very interesting news that I don't think many people were expecting to hear. Now, a journalist by the name of Mike Straw is the one who broke the news. He works for Insider Gaming, which is a very big gaming publication. They break news on games all the time. Mike Straw himself has broke many different stories over the years, especially as it pertains to sports games. I've used him as a source on this channel more times than I can count, whether it be leaks about Madden or other games, whether it be details about upcoming 2K games or the NFL license, and he's always been right. So if he says something, you can take it to the bank pretty much. And this is what Mike Straw had to say earlier tonight when he broke the story. He said that he's been told that a deal has been agreed upon between EA and the NFL to keep the NFL simulation license exclusive with EA for years to come. And he said it's not 100% finalized yet because they're still working on certain things, but that it's pretty much all but done and it will be announced at least before the year is over. And it's going to be for a bigger amount of money than the deal has ever been before, which really is no surprise because every time these types of deals get renewed, it's always going to be for more money. But here is the surprising part that I don't think most people would even believe. But he said that EA actually did not want to remain exclusive. He said they wanted just to have a regular licensing deal. They wanted to save some money because having an NFL licensing deal is expensive in itself. Having to pay for an exclusive license is significantly more expensive. So they wanted to just have a regular license. They were okay with the license being opened up. But the NFL pushed hard to get them to agree to stay exclusive. And I'm going to break down what all this means because to some of you, you're probably saying this doesn't even make sense. Why would the NFL have to push them to stay exclusive if they didn't want to? Why wouldn't EA want to stay exclusive knowing no one else could compete with them? Now, I've kind of known about this for a while now because I've talked to different developers over the years. It's also been a rumor that I'm sure some of you have even heard at certain points. EA has been trying to get away from the exclusive license because of how much money it costs. And I know that could sound crazy because you would say, well, why would they want to compete if they didn't have to? Well, I think the truth is a lot of times these studios, they don't mind competing. In fact, EA has said in the past that they do not mind competing. They would like to compete, at least from the developer side of things. If we're talking about the higher ups in corporate EA, they might feel differently, who knows? But then again, those are the people that are negotiating these deals. So at least in their mind, they don't feel that they need the exclusive license to still remain successful and sell a lot of copies of Madden and make money on microtransactions and everything else. But it's one thing if I've heard those rumors and said it, or somebody else in the community maybe have heard those rumors and said it, but it's different when a journalist comes out and says it and confirms it, because he wouldn't say that if it wasn't the case. And it's also believable if you look at the fact that EA recently walked away from the FIFA license with their soccer game because they were tired of paying the amount of money that the FIFA license cost. They wanted to keep it at the right price, but they couldn't come to that agreement, so they just walked away from it. Now, an NFL game is a little bit different because you still need the NFL license to make an NFL game. You don't need a FIFA license to make a soccer game. The game is mostly still the same with or without the FIFA license. However, if you don't have an NFL license, you don't have an NFL game. It's just all generic, and that just would not sell well. But if you really think about it, this shouldn't be that much of a shocker because 20 years ago when this license went exclusive, it's because the NFL wanted it to. That's well documented. The NFL is the one who wanted to go exclusive. It was never EA. It was never any other company trying to do it. And in fact, I've even read places, not that I know that this part is 100% true, but I've heard that even back then that 2K actually offered them more money than EA to be the exclusive game when the NFL decided that they wanted to go exclusive. But we all know that the NFL wasn't really happy with what 2K did with the release of 2K5. Even though it was a great game, they didn't like that they sold it at $20. Yeah, that's a well-documented thing. They really did not like that move at all. So I mean, that makes sense why they would go with EA over 2K in that situation if they were already feeling some type of way towards 2K. But just in general, it's well documented that the NFL is the reason that the license stays exclusive. It's not EA. Now, maybe there was a time period during these last 20 years where EA did want to stay exclusive. I'm sure that that's a possibility, but it's been talked about for quite some years now that EA would like to walk away from that. I've heard it from people that used to work there. I've heard it from people that currently work there. And I've heard it from other journalists who have known about this for years. But the fact is, if the NFL wants to stay exclusive, you kind of have to play ball, because I know that would be the next question is, well, why doesn't EA just say, no, we're not paying for an exclusive license? What are you going to do? There's no other game that can come out. It would take 4 to 5 years to make another NFL sim game, no matter what company did it. What are you going to do for the next 4 or 5 years? Just not have an NFL game? Sure, but if the NFL is the one that's pushing to stay exclusive, at a certain point, you have to look at that as a company and say, well, this is clearly what the NFL wants. So if it's not with us, then they're going to do it with somebody else eventually. So yeah, EA could maybe go the next 4 to 5 years with a non-exclusive deal until another game came out. And then who's to say the NFL at that point does not go exclusive with that other company and just leave EA without a license completely. So that's why I think you kind of have to play ball. You try to negotiate and see how the NFL feels about it. But if it's very clear that the NFL is adamant in staying exclusive, you kind of just have to play ball with them at that point, I would think, because you're going to run the risk of then being on the outside looking in years down the line if another company does come along. But had the NFL been open to it, then I don't think they would have to fear getting the license taken away from them completely. They would just be ready to compete if another company came along. So then that brings us to the whole question of, why does the NFL want to stay exclusive so badly? Well, they can charge a lot more for an exclusive license than a non-exclusive one. But then the next question would be, well, if there were multiple games, wouldn't they stand to make more money? And honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. I think the only way we would know that is if we saw multiple games come out and we see what the numbers were. I don't know how much the exclusive license is versus how much they could potentially make with having multiple games. But I do know that the cost difference between exclusive and non-exclusive is a drastic difference. And maybe that difference is just big enough to where they are making more money with just having one game. But to be honest, I don't know what they could stand to make if they had multiple games out there. Maybe they could make more. However, maybe the NFL has other reasons they want to stay exclusive as well. I mean, money is definitely the biggest reason, I would think, but maybe they also just only want to oversee one game. Because one thing I do know about the NFL is they are very, very picky and particular with every little thing. So anything that goes into the game, from the smallest things to the biggest things, it all has to be run by the NFL. They have to look at everything. They have to be in on the process. They have to okay everything, even down to the trailers and the cover athletes. Anything you could think about revolving around this game, from the smallest detail to the cover of the game, the NFL oversees all of that. So I do imagine that they probably just want to only oversee one game. I think that could be part of it, but I do think money is by far the biggest reason. And even though maybe we can't fully comprehend just how much money these deals are for, they probably do stand to make more money just having an exclusive deal. But like I said, for a lot of people, some of this isn't really news. We know the NFL has been like this for many, many years. The reason the license is exclusive in the first place is because of them and nobody else. And they're the only ones with the power to reverse that. All they simply have to do is say, we don't want it this way anymore, but they clearly do. And they have not changed that tune in over 20 years. And we've seen some low parts of Madden. I'll be the first to tell you, I think the last few years, I think Madden has gotten a lot better. I think when you go back to Madden 19, 20, 21, we were at a really low point of Madden games. And even through that, the NFL was like, yes, we want to stay exclusive. So when you break it all down, this is how they've operated for many years now, and it doesn't seem like they're changing it anytime soon. And the crazy part about all of this is that if you see kind of the narrative that had been going around lately, it was saying that, you know, we've never been closer to the deal being opened up. We've never been closer to a non-exclusive license. EA is going into the last year. It hasn't been renewed yet. You know, if you don't buy the game this year, for example, and the sales aren't good, that would maybe force the NFL to finally say, yeah, we're cutting it off. But in reality, the whole time, it kind of appears that one of the biggest holdups of the deal being signed is that EA's the one trying to not be exclusive this whole time. And in reality, they were never close to losing the license because the NFL is the one that's pushing them to stay in this partnership. And the silver lining to that, if we're going to find one, is that we have seen what they've done for Madden 26, at least on paper in the trailers. We got to see what the game plays like when we get it, but this is the most work they've put into like a development cycle of Madden in a very, very, very long time. To the point where people were saying, wow, they're finally doing all this stuff. They're giving us all this stuff we've been waiting years for. They're finally doing things they should have been doing. And then that was followed up by, well, the only reason they're doing it is clearly because they're at a threat of losing this deal and they're going into the last year. So they have to really show out this year in order to keep the license. But now we know that that's not the case. Now we know that the NFL is the one that's almost like forcing them to stay exclusive. So the silver lining to this, if you have to find one, is that everything that we know about 26, all of the work that they did put into it, they did that knowing that they really were not in threat of losing the license. Because if the NFL is the one actively pursuing you to stay exclusive when you're the one trying to go non-exclusive, well, then we can't really sit here and say that the reason they put so much work and effort into 26, at least from what we know, there's no reason they did that because of threat of losing the license, because now we know that that's not the case. And Mike Straw did further elaborate on Twitter when somebody asked him what's in it for the NFL, and he basically just said, you keep it exclusive, you get a larger rights fees. If you open it up, that means you have to now negotiate another deal with another company if they wanted to make one. If you open it up, you get a lot less money up front from EA because it's not exclusive anymore. Now you have to negotiate a deal with another company, which that takes a lot of time in itself. And the company has to also want to make a game, because just because the license opens up, that doesn't necessarily mean 2K is going to just jump up and make a game, because at the end of the day, these games cost a lot of money to make. Way more than they did back in the PS2 days. And that's why you don't really see competition with sports games anymore. You don't see anybody else trying to make an NBA game or an MLB game or an NHL game. And I don't believe any of those licenses are exclusive. And the reason for that is because there's already a really established game out there. It's hard for these companies to justify investing $1 billion or close to it to build a game, wait 5 years, put it out there, and then you still got to go compete with the game that's been established for many years. That's why we don't see it anymore. So the NFL wants to stay exclusive because it's just more of a sure guaranteed thing. That's what Mike Straw said. They get a huge lump sum of money up front, locked in, massive deal, and then they don't have to worry about a single dime for the rest of the time that this deal is locked in. Whereas if you open it up, you're getting a lot less up front, and there's no guarantee that another company is going to make a game. That is the key part here, is there's no guarantee. If they could be guaranteed that, yes, 2K would absolutely make a game, they'd get it out in a timely manner, and it would make a lot of money, maybe they would consider it. But if you open that license up, you get way less money up front from EA, and then let's just say nobody comes along and wants to make that other game. Now you're just left with a lot less money than you could have had if you stayed exclusive. Most of these companies and corporations, they just rather lock in a crazy amount of money up front and not have to worry about it anymore. That's just the reality of it. Now, to end this video off on a little bit of a higher note, some of you may have not heard, but college basketball games will be returning, and if you want to learn more about that, you can check out this video right here on the screen.